saying that that couldn't be done by the attorney, but we might say that it's okay so long as Paul was consulted. And so we might add, as you can see down the bottom or through the pop-up, decisions to sell the family home, or decisions to change ownership of the family business, or decisions to sell some items of personal significance. So let's just say we only want this to that would be subject to consultation. Now, if you want, you can add more than one person to be consulted, and they could be consulted on either the same or different things. So you can enter this as many times as you like, and set out as many different things for them to be consulted on as you think are relevant. So the next thing we have to do from our optional provisions is look at the requirements for provision of information, and this is another one of those checks and balances. And so in this case, we can specify somebody's, perhaps one of the children. Okay, so in this case, the person being given the information, they don't have a consultation right. They are not required to be consulted about anything before decisions are made, but they are entitled to receive certain information. And so this could be, as it says here, copies of bank statements for transparency. Copy of the current will, perhaps, that type of thing. The person that's consulted here doesn't necessarily need to be a family member. It might be the type of thing, the person who's given the information. This could be a professional advisor, a financial advisor, or a lawyer, or someone that can provide some degree of experienced professional oversight of what's happening. So you can enter as many different pieces of information as are relevant, and you can add other people to be informed simply by clicking here. If you need to, you can always come up here to this little arrow, and you can manage the repetitions here as well. You can add new ones, delete them, or move more than one up and down, or erase all the answers and start again. So the next thing that we need to do is consider benefits, and whether or not the donor wants to give the attorney the authority to use their property for their own benefit. And there are some provisions in the legislation here which are relevant to this as well. So it's worth taking your time and just looking through this and understanding what's actually required. So under Section 107 of the Act, the attorney is already authorised to be able to recover from their property, the donor's property, out-of-pocket expenses and professional fees and expenses, and to deal with any property the donor and the attorney own jointly and not as tenants in common, if the donor and the attorney are married or in a civil union or a de facto relationship and they live together and share incomes. So it's worth checking and understanding what Section 107 already allows, and you might say that's fine, that's as far as I want that to go. If you select no, then arguably you're overriding that, and you'd be saying it's not intended that they'll even be able to get out-of-pocket expenses and professional fees and expenses, in which case it makes the role more onerous and less likely that the attorney would want to actually fulfill that role. So you would ordinarily want to at least go this far. You could go further and select this option, in which case they can also benefit themselves in certain other ways. And so the wording that will go in is, yes, my attorneys can act to their own benefits as stated here, and so you could enter details about, say, celebratory gifts and things that you might wish to enable them to be able to buy using the donor's property. So that would be how you would use that. And you could also choose this option. So you can see you can choose more than one option, and you can enter details of particular people who the attorney can also act to the benefit of. Now you'll see that that's caused this box here to open up, and so we can then go through and enter the details of some particular people who this would apply for. So say there's a sister, Alice, and so you can come down here and you can enter the specific details of what Alice can receive as a benefit. So you might choose to say that gifts can be made to Alice of up to $2,000 per annum, for instance. And you can enter as many different people that the attorney can act to the benefit of in that way as well. Up here, we've allowed for celebratory gifts and charitable donations, which means that we've got this section here to fill in. And so you can choose whether you don't want that to apply, or if you do want it to apply, you'll have to make your answers consistent for celebratory gifts. And you can also do charitable donations or just charitable donations. So depending on then which you've chosen, for celebratory gifts, you can choose who can receive those, and you can tick as many of these as are applicable, or you can enter other, in which case you can enter as many different repeats of that as you would like as well. And you can enter, or have to enter, a maximum amount of each gift. And then for the charitable donations, you can do that using the following format. And again, just by hitting tab at the end here, or coming down to these here, you can delete rows, move rows up, insert rows, edit rows. So you can enter as many different charitable donations as you would like as well. So the next thing is to look at the additional terms and conditions. Now this is an unusual thing to include because the forms are very wide-ranging. They cover a lot of things already. If you do need to include something else here, it's probably because it's a bit complex and unusual, and in that case definitely recommend that you should get some specific legal advice on that. You'd enter a heading here, and then you can enter whatever the text is that you want to do. There's some examples of the types of things here which you might particularly want to cover off. Maybe it would include making more substantial gifts. It could cover if you've got a gifting program in relation to a trust, or there's some other person that requires ongoing, more material financial assistance. If you have children with particular needs, particular types of investment strategy that you want to have followed for property. Earlier on, I mentioned around successor attorneys and making changes to the order and the numbers in which they might be appointed and the various timing. Or you could potentially add requirements for attorneys to consult with each other before making decisions and to have to tell each other about any decisions or actions that they've taken separately. There's a wide range of things that you could do, but you do need to take care with those to make sure that everything is actually going to work as you would like in practice. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my mind and say actually I don't want to include any additional terms, in which case that disappears, and that just means I've only got the witness certificate now to complete. And with regard to witnessing, it really depends on who's preparing the document. If you're an individual and you plan to take this to a law firm, you may not know who's going to do that for you. If you're a lawyer preparing it on behalf of a client, you probably know that it's going to be you, in which case you could complete at least part of it now. If we said complete it later, then we would just move straight to conclusion. If we say complete it now, we would have to enter the details of the witness, the address, occupation, and then we have to complete whether or not they're a lawyer, a legal executive, or an officer employee of a trustee corporation. Lastly, whether or not the power of attorney is being prepared for two people who are each going to appoint each other as the attorney in which case there are some particular provisions in the certificate that would be relevant. Here I'm going to say we'll just leave that blank and we'll complete it later, which means that we're done on there. Now we've got to the conclusion section. Before we want to do anything, maybe we can just check all our details. You can go through, make sure you've got all of the details in there just as you want, because you can then come down when you are finished and accept the terms and conditions and click on finish. And this will then generate your document and your explanation for the witness and your answer file.